Greetings viewers, Eric the Car Guy, and thank you so much for tuning in today. And you'd be glad you did, because today is the return of something that I haven't done for a while, and that is fixing it forward. For those of you not familiar with what I did with fixing it forward, I'll put links in the description of previous videos and things so you can get more detail on that. But in summary, I basically perform repairs for free for people that, well, let's say they are experiencing financial hardships, veterans, things like that. Anyway, I purchased this 2005 Honda Odyssey a while ago because I wanted to take a different approach with this. Rather than taking in vehicles that were already broken, I thought what I would do is take a vehicle, go through it, fix it up, and then give it away. And that's what we have here with this 2005 Honda Odyssey that I purchased for 500 bucks, no less. Now, I was initially told that the van had a blown engine. However, I started up and I drove it into the shop, and that's not really indicative of what a blown engine is. But in today's video, I'm gonna look this over, see what kind of things this Odyssey needs, and then in coming episodes, what I'll do is I'll perform those repairs and we'll put this in the hands of somebody who needs it at the end. Stick around, it's gonna be fun. The van certainly isn't the belle of the ball. I mean, we've had a few, well, a little bit of body work that has been solved with a few screws just to hold the plastic onto the front. Probably have to look into that a little more. I'm sure you've noticed the headlights, and I'm not sure if I'll recondition those, which I can do, or you might find some replacements. I'll figure that out along the way. I would like to replace the tires and renew those. Those of you that know me know that I'm a tire freak. I look at people's tires in parking lots, things like that. I like to see good tires. It's not that I think these tires are necessarily bad. They've just been on it for a while, and it's been sitting around for a while, and as you can see, they've lost some air. So I'm not really keen on the tires. So replacing those is kind of a no-brainer. And judging by the fact that, well, I had to goose it a little bit extra to get it going, the brakes were rusted up pretty good, so it'll probably need a four-wheel brake job. But this was a pretty decent minivan back in its day, in 2005. However, well, a truck driver used to own this, and I'm not really sure what that's all about, because those stains seem to permeate the interior. And it doesn't really smell bad, but it doesn't smell great. There's something weird going on. I don't know what this stuff went to. It was, I believe, the premium model. Yeah, it's even got a DVD player up in there. So it was a pretty high-end vehicle for its time. That's where the DVDs and power outlets and things go, and rear air and all that stuff. So this has some of the more high-dollar amenities that these came with. I'm happy to see that the door works, but if you've seen my previous videos about Odysseys, you might be aware that this is a common problem. Let me just check, and this is how I check. So now that amount of movement is suspect, but it's not what I feel to be the end of the world. But given that this is a common issue on these, I'll probably replace the rollers on both sides just to get ahead of the game. Those stains seem to permeate throughout. I'm not really sure what happened to this center console piece. It used to be one piece. Definitely could use some interior work, or maybe just a replacement of the interior. That might be the best way to go. I took the key out so you can stop worrying about the beeping. I've learned to ignore it. But anyway, it looks like this weather stripping isn't attached, but the clips are still here, so we should be able to put that back in. That's probably responsible for some kind of wind noise, I suspect. And that's kind of the drawback here. This vehicle isn't registered or insured, so I can't legally drive it on the road, so I can't really take it for a proper test drive. So I really just have to save a lot of my inspection for this part of it. Check it out, it's already got a roof rack and roof rails. Here's some more exterior trim issues. Not 100% sure what's going on here. At least the tailgate still works. Although, these have been sitting here for a while, that the ends have come right off of this. They're just the covers on the ends, so I have to clean those up. More just gross interior stuff that I'm seeing back here. Yeah, it's just, it would be nice to get a new interior for this, if I'm honest, rather than trying to mess with this and clean it up. It seems more trouble than it's worth, but I'll have to look into the cost of replacement of this interior, or maybe I could find something in salvage. I don't know. Coming around here on this side, stuff works. I'll have to sort out that glove box. That may be more interior stuff that I need to worry about. But so far, it's just a super dirty thing. Dirty and a bit gross. A little rusty stuff starting out down there. Let's check this door. I'm gonna stick with my earlier assessment of doing the rollers on both doors, but I'm grateful that they both appear to be working. Under the hood seems to look about as dirty as the inside does, and those of you that are viewers of this show know that I absolutely hate these battery terminals. I'll probably swap them out. To put them back to original equipment will require replacing all these cables, but I'm not going to do that. But I will look for a better set of these. I absolutely hate these. I see these do nothing but cause problems. So I do not recommend these at all for anybody under any circumstance. Well, okay, I won't say under any circumstances. If it's all you got and you need to get down the road, that's one thing. But if you're doing this as a repair, no, stop it. The rest of the engine honestly doesn't look like a whole lot of leaks from up here. There used to be an engine cover up here that's gone missing at some point. The belt looks a little frayed. I was expecting to replace this engine. But as I said, I mean, it starts up, it runs. In fact, we'll do that here in the shop just so we can hear what it sounds like before we put it up in the air. But I didn't hear anything that sounded bad. Let's pull the dipstick, see what the oil looks like. Looks low and old. I don't know about you, but especially for something that's been sitting for a few months, this doesn't sound or run like an engine that is blown up. I'm not seeing it. So we might get lucky on this one, and I might not have to replace the engine based on what I'm hearing. I mean, really, nothing. Just burning off a little bit of whatever, maybe some leaks here or there or something, but I'm not feeling the blown engine vibe here. I'm gonna try revving it up to see if I can hear something. It's drive-by-wire, so I've got to do that from inside the van. That's something. Now the smoke seems to be increasing. Now the VSA light's on the dash and power is down. And that can have something to do with the throttle body. It may be, the engine may be trying to do something. But based on the smoke and everything here, I wonder if it's just as simple as a clogged up catalytic converter or basically a restricted exhaust somewhere. I've hooked up my scan tool to, I hate it when it does that. I've hooked up my scan tool to pull the codes, find out why the check engine light and the VSA light are on. Hopefully, it will be able to give us that info. It looks like we have several DTCs. Seatbelt buckle switch, passenger airbag cutoff, seatbelt sensor. So that passenger seat, somebody would remove the back of it. So there looks like they might have been in there. Maybe they left something unplugged. That said, we were talking about interior part replacement. Now, ABS kind of has to do with that VSA. All right, history codes, battery malfunction or battery voltage malfunction, not worried about that. ECM control relation malfunction, that's interesting. And a controller area network, that's also interesting. So we may be looking at, well, first I'm going to check all the fuses on that. So what does the engine have to say? An oxygen sensor code, another oxygen sensor code. So bank 2 sensor 1, so that O2 sensor is probably dead. Rocker arm actuator system stuck. So this actually might be low engine oil. So this is like a VTEC system kind of deal. And first thing I'm going to check with this is for low engine oil. I already looked at that. Nothing in the transmission. Why are you so wobbly? Stop being wobbly. So far, the computer's telling us it has a dead O2 sensor. There might be a communication issue between the ABS and the ECM. So there could be some kind of issue there. But low battery voltage, always a culprit. Anytime I run into like codes like this, First thing to check is always the battery and the battery voltage. Like I said, this is just a battery I keep around to start cars up with. It's not a good battery, so definitely a battery's in the future here. Let's get this up on a lift and get a look underneath it. Unusual oil leaks. Those O2 sensors look a little contaminated with oil, but check engine light says that one of those is probably totally dead. But this is what I'm curious about. I would love to drop this section of pipe down so I could get a look up inside these catalytic converters. I've just got a feeling based on the way it ran. It was fine when I first started it up, but the more it warmed up, the more it seemed to have a problem. Now, it still could be the VSA kicking in and basically throttling the engine back. That's a total possibility, but I don't think it's going to be too much. A little bit of heat on those fasteners to get this piece of pipe down, and I can get a look up into the catalytic converters that way. There's a splash shield that's missing here. Probably went away during whatever happened that made the front bumper skin come loose. I really don't see anything abnormal. Nothing that sticks out and says, that was in a major collision and there's a big problem here, or well, a hole in the side of the block would indicate a bad engine. I don't see that either. See that CV boot leaking a bit, sort of slinging grease around. But otherwise, it is looking a little rusty, without a doubt, but structurally sound. More rust back here though, for sure. We know what we're gonna need to do if we ever need to do an alignment. I might as well just get ahead of the game and make this a part of the repair and replacing these bolts. Possibly these lower, well, actually probably these lower control arms to go with it, just because those are probably all seized up. We'll try some penetrating oil. We'll see if we can make it happen. The rust gods will let us know one way or the other. And there's a little something kissed it there. Exhaust still looks pretty decent. Honda put stainless steel exhaust on there. Well, I think that part of it was stainless steel, but this part up here I think was something different. But they use stainless steel on a lot of their exhausts, and it rusts out at the joints before the pipes. Really just a little bit of rust from sitting. Let's get the wheels off and get a look at the brakes. Before I pull the wheels, I'm going to check for any loose suspension components. Nothing really there. Definitely rusty, but solid. Less rusty, but still rusty. Suspension seems solid. I figured it was going to be like this. I get excited when I get the opportunity to use this guy. It's my friend. About what I expected. And this, I'm going to say, is going to be new rotors and pads. As far as calipers, I guess I'm going to kind of have to wait and see when I compress these pistons if there's an issue there. The rears seem worse than the fronts as far as corrosion. And these have the parking brake that's under the hat here. But it's just a parking brake. But then again, the shoes are kind of cheap, so we'll see what's involved with this when we get this apart, but also pads and rotors. Same thing over here. Crusty. Very crusty. And more of the same here. Brake hoses and everything look good though. Simply put, my curiosity has piqued about this the possibility of a catalytic converter or some kind of exhaust restriction here. And granted, there's a check engine light with the VSA and a communication between the ABS and the VSA that sort of says that there could be an electronic issue. I just want to rule out a mechanical one. Anytime there's a performance problem, I always try to rule out mechanical. And this pipe may very well need to come down for other things anyway, so I'm going to have a look. So unfortunate. I was correct. And that proves it. That's what's left of a catalytic converter. Up here, we can see the chunks, little bits of catalytic converter. Let's see who bit it. There's nothing at all inside this rear catalytic converter, like nothing. This front one, there's something there. That's what the rear one is supposed to look like. But it looks like the front or the rear one is the one that went bad. Got all busted up. So we need to add catalytic converter, at least one, to our list. This one is questionable because it got pelted with all those little bits. It might not be a bad idea to think about this one as well. Let's see how much stuff comes out of this pipe. Enough stuff. Mostly it probably clogged that third catalytic converter. Still, I'm glad we found the culprit. It's a lot cheaper than a new engine. Things like this should stay inside the catalytic converter. Well, not in front of the one that's behind the catalytic converter that this came out of, is probably a better way of saying it. A while back, I did a video about cleaning catalytic converters, and one thing that came up over and over, you didn't do it properly, blah, blah, blah. Well, if this happens to a catalytic converter, no amount of cleaning is going to fix it. Also, if the precious metals that are bonded to the inside of the ceramic substrate flake off and go away, same thing. So anyway, this van needs at least one catalytic converter, probably two. I probably want to do that rear one also because that fine dust and all that material is probably embedded down in there and causing that exhaust restriction. And what came to mind immediately, to me at least, the reason why I went down this path was because it ran fine when I first started it up, but the more it ran, the less it wanted to run. And that is, to me, one of those red flags that says check the exhaust, see if there's a restriction there. So that's why I went in this direction. Just to satisfy my own curiosity, I cleaned out all those bits, ran a shop vac down inside that second catalytic converter, cleaned everything out, and now I'm going to rev it and give you a comparison of what it sounds like now as compared to what it did before. I still think that VSA thing's coming into play. It's not losing steam like it did before, though. I have a theory about what might be going on here and why the engine won't rev like it did initially when I brought it in. And that is the VSA light being on. That's Honda's system, Vehicle Stability Assist. It works with the ABS and also the throttle to help maintain traction. So I'm wondering if, because of VSA lights on, that it's sort of going into a kind of a limp-in thing, and that may be the result of, well, the previous restricted exhaust, which I've now fixed. So I'm going to clear any codes. I'm actually going to disconnect the negative battery cable and clear them all. I'm not too worried about this because any hard codes, any failures that are still present, will be present again when I reconnect the battery and start things up. So if the VSA comes on then, well, I'll look into that a little bit further. But for now, I'm going to disconnect the negative battery cable, clear the codes, let it run for a minute, rev it up, see what it does then. We'll start with this. Just leave that off for a few seconds. Let everything reset. And yes, I could do this with the scan tool, but I find this just to be quicker. All right, reconnect it. Revs up just fine now, no VSA light. That's hitting the rev limiter. Let's let it get up to temperature and see if the VSA light comes back on. Airbag light was on, but it went off. Check engine light just came on, so I can pull that code and have a look. But now I can rev it. And that does not sound like a blown engine, although there's some weird noise there. It doesn't sound like a blown engine at all. The longer this runs, the better it seems to run. It's nice and smooth. Those little weird noises are kind of going away. It's sat for a few months, so who knows what's going on over here, but I'm gonna be doing a timing belt and water pump on this anyway. That said, I think we're out of the woods as far as like a major engine issue. I think clearing that exhaust restriction went a long way for this, and I'm gonna pull the code now to see why the check engine light is on, but I suspect it's that same O2 sensor code that we had before. If that's the case, I think we can move forward with this thing with confidence and not have to worry about replacing the engine. Happy about that. Let's see what we found. Okay, so there's definitely something going on in the left front seatbelt buckle switch. Interestingly enough, seatbelt buckles are covered under Honda lifetime warranty, so I may be able to get that covered. Those codes were there before. Now, this is what I'm interested in. Battery voltage, that's one. We know we don't have a good battery in there. This communication issue is one of the big concerns for me, so I'll be looking at this at some point. That'll be covered in future videos. There's still a little bit of work to do, but not nearly as much as I initially anticipated because I was told this van had a blown engine, hence the reason I got it for $500. But I think clearing that exhaust restriction went a long way towards helping this van. It seems to be running so much better. Few things to look into, and I'll cover those in future videos, in particular that communication issue between the ECM and the ABS, some sort of CAN issue. I need to find out what's going there. However, it keeps coming up with low battery voltage codes, so that may have something to do with it. And what I might start with, and I often do this, is starting with a good battery, because low voltage, computers speak in the language of voltage, and if there's low voltage, then they can't understand each other and they can set codes like that. So I just want to eliminate that as a possibility. That being said, I certainly have some parts to find, the interior parts, that type of thing, to look into, along with, some brakes and the other stuff that I showed you in this video. I may not be covering all that stuff necessarily in detail. I've done a million videos about brake jobs, even on Odysseys. But I will be covering some of this. And at some point, I'm going to find whoever's going to receive this thing when I'm done with it. So we need to figure that out. But I figure we'll start by fixing it up, and then we'll get to that point. But this is the return of fixing it forward. In a limited sense. I'm not going to turn my channel into this. In fact, I'm thinking about doing an ETCG1 video about this to discuss that part of it in detail. When that becomes available, I'll link it down in the description. I will also link down in the description additional information, Odyssey videos, all that stuff. I will also put a link to EricTheCarGuy.com in the description if you have automotive questions not covered in this video. Aside from that, thank you so much for watching today. Be safe, have fun, stay dirty, and I will see you next time.